I came to Robert E. Lee in 1977. I had taught 2 years in Temple and got hired to come down and help coach, so I coached volleyball and basketball. And I stayed down here until November of 1989 when I left and went to work for Exxon. I taught English. Strangely enough, when I majored in phys ed, they told me to pick a minor, and I didn't know what to minor in, and the counselor said, pick English, you'll never have to teach it. I said, okay. And that's all I ever taught at Lee High School. It was the morning of April the 29th. I was just getting up, had poured my first cup of coffee, and my phone rang. And it was Mary Taylor, who was the volleyball coach, head volleyball coach at Lee. And she said, do you have your TV on? I said, no. And she said, Lee High School's on fire. And I said, what? So I ran to my back door and opened my door, and my deck opens out onto what was Spur 201. And I looked in the distance, and I could see the light. And I came back, got on the phone, and I said, I can see the light. She said, get over there, find out what's going on, and let me know. So I got dressed and headed over.
Right.
It was still dark. There were a lot of firemen rushing around, a lot of police. Cars were pulling up and parking. I parked in the old bowling alley parking lot and walked down to the street light, the traffic light, and ran into all kinds of students and other faculty members who had already gotten there. And we just stood around and watched the guys work. We couldn't tell where the fire was exactly. All we knew it was in the back of the building. And that was when I realized that my room was in the back of the building. And my students had just turned in their senior research papers. I had a whole box full of them by my desk. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, you know, if those papers burn, there's no way those kids can recreate it. My second thought was, oh my gosh, what a way to end your senior year. So it was pretty traumatic. Lots of tears, people crying, you know, a lot of former students were there, a lot of current students were there, and everybody was just in disbelief. My students were not sure whether or not they were going to go to college. Some of them knew they weren't going to go to college, they were just going to get out of high school and go to work. So this was pre-Mark White and all of his changes. So their research papers were on a career. So they had to research the career, talk about, you know, the education they would need, what kind of pay they would get, so on and so forth. So that's what we did, and they had just finished all that. Well, fortunately, we didn't meet right away. They gave us several days off and said we're trying to come together with a plan. And the next thing I knew, I was getting a phone call saying, come to your room, get all your stuff, your personal stuff, because they're going to box everything up and send it to the fire restoration people. So I went in, and that box of papers was sitting right where I'd left them. No water damage, no smoke damage, but they did smell bad. So I can't remember if it was the next week or the week after that was spring break, because I'd planned to use spring break to grade all the papers. And so some of the kids were upset that the papers survived. Most of them were pretty happy that they had survived. So we spent the fall semester at Sterling, and then in January of '88, we got to go back to refurbished Robert E. Lee. That was nice. Sorry it was for the fire, but the facilities, they did a really good job fixing those up. That was probably the best thing that came out of the fire. Faculties worked together, students worked together, everybody adjusted schedules, everybody helped. We were all under a burden. We had to share books, we had to share rooms, and for the most part it was done without complaint. You did what you had to do because we knew we had to get those kids graduated and finish up the year. So that was probably the best thing that came out of the fire, was there was a new camaraderie between a lot of people who had always been foes on the athletic fields and, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was the best part.